Good evening. Sydney is tonight staring down the barrel of at least 4 more weeks in lockdown, with the outbreak claiming another life and 89 more cases. Tough new rules have been introduced at the current epicentre of the virus. They apply to all workers who live in 27 suburbs in and around Fairfield.
Winter 2021, one Sydney will never forget. All the signs the lockdown could go for up to another month.
The unlikelihood of the lockdown finishing on Friday, and the numbers speak for themselves, and we'll have more to say about that tomorrow.
Of the 89 new cases today, 21 were infectious while in the community. One man in his 70s has died from the virus. More than 3/4 are close family contacts.
We've got one household of 7 people, one household of 5 people, and 5 households of 3 people. So by the time we get to the households, this virus is effectively spread through that household at a very rapid rate.
COVID is burning through the southwest. Nowhere is feeling the heat more than Fairfield. Streets are deserted, most cafes boarded up. Police are on horseback, some patrolling in cars. The entire council area is taking the threat seriously. There's a new 24-hour testing hub at Endeavour Park. There are long queues for tests at the showgrounds.
We got the call yesterday afternoon and we're ready for 8 o'clock this morning.
Here in Fairfield, the virus is running rampant. Outside this clinic in the main street, there's a healthy queue for people getting tested. But from today, there are new rules. Any essential worker will need to get tested every 3 days if they intend working outside the Fairfield area. But no one seems exactly sure who is an essential worker.
Dr. Chan, would you like to clarify it for us? Because there's a lot of enthusiasm heading on both directions.
Is it a tradie? One of them from Fairfield was infected and travelled to a site in Goulburn.
I do believe that we need to have some tighter control around the essential worker criteria.
The Premier couldn't help with a definition.
It is so difficult to have a precise rule for every single thing. That's why we rely on common sense.
Regardless of who will need to get tested, there's not a lot of love for the new plan.
I'm not going to stay in the queue for hours just to get a test every 3 days. Otherwise, I'll sit home and I'll stop working.
But it's like every 3 days, I don't know how many people will be able to manage that one.
Workers in the rest of Greater Sydney will need to test every 7 days if working 50 kilometres outside the lockdown zone. And workers will need proof of a negative test on request by police.
It's Fairfield now. They need a proof that we got tested, and every 3 days we have to do it so that we can go to work.
Dr Daniel Sada runs the Greenway Medical Clinic at Wetherill Park. His patients are Middle Eastern background. His fridge is well stocked with AstraZeneca, but his patients are reluctant to get the jab.
And at the moment we have around 60 doses available.
1 hour ago, this was the queue for the testing station at Fairfield Showground. The area has a dose of testing fever after hearing about the latest rules.
And Mark's with me in the studio. Mark, the latest venues causing concern, some big supermarkets.
Indeed, Peter. The new exposure sites include Coles Fairfield on the 9th, 10th and 11th of July, Coles Windsor on the 10th of July and Westfield Penrith on the same day. Also an indication the virus has moved north. A positive case visited the St Ives shopping centre on the 9th and 12th of July, but the risk there is being assessed as low. Peter.
Mark, thank you. Sophie Walsh joins me now. Sophie, break down the details of what this new health order means.
Well, Pete, the city of Fairfield is home to 209,000 people and covers 27 suburbs, including Cabramatta, Horsley Park, Bonnyrigg and Bosley Park. The new health order kicks in from midnight tonight. Anyone who lives in Fairfield but does essential work outside that local government area will be required to get tested every 3 days to prove they are COVID-free and not spreading the virus to other parts of Sydney. Workers won't have to isolate while they await their test results results unless they have symptoms. You also must carry proof of your COVID-19 test, such as an SMS text message or an email addressed to you, which will be checked by police officers and workplace managers. The government is also asking employers to help police with the new health order and ban staff who are from the Fairfield LGA from their premises unless they can produce a negative test every 72 hours. Businesses are also urged to avoid using staff altogether who live in COVID hotspots where possible. The health order will also apply to those working in the regions. Anyone who lives here but works more than 50 kilometres outside Greater Sydney will need to get tested once a week, even if they're symptom-free. Pete.
Sophie, thank you. They've spent weeks crying for help, and today that help arrived. Billions of dollars in cash support for businesses and workers crippled by Sydney's lockdown. The New South Wales and federal governments will split the cost of propping up our economy for at least the next month.
Lockdown for Amy Campbell means she can't open her Caringbah hair salon, and it's killing her.
I'm just in survival mode. I feel like it's just survival at the moment.
After 3 weeks of businesses like Amy's pleading for help, our leaders have put their hands in their pockets and they've dug deep.
Help is here and help is on the way as well.
The Prime Minister and Premier will go 50-50, throwing cash at businesses with a turnover between $75,000 and $50 million a year. If they can prove a 30% revenue loss, they will be given 40% of the value of their payroll in cash, which is at least $1,500 and capped at up to $10,000 a week. You can apply through Service New South Wales from tomorrow.
The administration of those supports need to be done in a way so it can get to people as simply and as quickly as is possible.
To be eligible, you'll have to compare your lockdown revenue to a 2-week period from 2019. For smaller businesses or sole traders, there will be a $1,500 a fortnight payment, while the New South Wales cash grants have been juiced, a maximum of a $15,000 lump sum if you've lost 70% of your revenue. But if from today businesses sack people, they won't get a cent.
Those businesses who access this payment will also be required not to reduce their headcount.
But accessing the money is absolutely time critical.
You need money in your bank account within 48 hours for most of these people to get by.
Philip Joel owns a handful of quick copy stationery stores. He's more than halved his staff already.
If you're going to lock people down, you need to support them as well financially.
Scrapping taxes helps with that. Payroll tax will be waived for July, August, September for businesses with a payroll of up to $10 million and deferred for all business until October.
There's been 12 months, 18 months to work this out, to have a plan in place for if this happened again.
The big one is paying rent while being forbidden from opening. So evictions will be banned for the duration of lockdown. And if a landlord gives a tenant rent relief, the government will take the same amount off the landlord's land tax bill. The PM has also increased payments for individuals who can't work.
It's honestly been extremely difficult, not knowing when we're coming back to work, not knowing anything really.
Now people like Emily can claim $600 a week if they've lost over 20 hours, $375 for less than that. And the payment is no longer just for Sydney, but extended across New South Wales.
You can get that payment right now. You don't have to have lost your job. You don't have to have left your employer.
This package won't come close to covering the lockdown losses for most businesses. Some will find it cheaper to either cut hours or sack staff. But one of the big issues will be how Service New South Wales handles the inundation of requests. Especially given it's never done a program at this scale before. Chris O'Keefe, 9 News.
OK, let's go to Canberra and our political editor, Chris Ullman. Chris, good evening to you. For the Prime Minister, the stakes couldn't be higher right now.
Pete, if Sydney fails, so does Scott Morrison. So no matter what motives you believe drive the man, he is highly motivated on every front. First, because supporting workers and businesses shut down by government decree is the right thing to do. Second, because New South Wales is the biggest engine in the national economy and he can't let it stall and risk the recovery. And third, because he'll wear some of the blame if this drags on, despite the fact that a pitch-perfect vaccine rollout would not have stopped this lockdown. And if the blame sticks, Scott Morrison's chances of re-election next year, Pete, will take a big hit.
OK, Chris, we'll leave you in Canberra. Thank you. Let's go to Bondi Junction where we find reporter Kate Creedon. Kate, the cluster at the unit block where you are tonight has grown even further.
Yeah, that's right, Pete. Today we learned another resident of the Botany Street apartment block has tested positive, bringing the total number of people infected to 9. However, in just the past half an hour, a van pulled up, the driver put on full PPE and 2 more residents were taken away. Those who have tested positive are being moved into health accommodation, while the remaining residents are deemed close contacts and not allowed to leave their apartments.
We're 4 days into the lockdown and people are very, very cross and annoyed here because they've been ringing up the numbers that we were given and we're getting no response.
And Pete, tonight the eastern suburbs is once again on high alert. 8 locations here in Bondi Junction have been included on the list of venues of concern, including Coles, Woolworths, Kmart and Westfield.
OK, Kate, thank you. Let's move across the city to Fairfield now, where we find Bill Hogan. Bill's at the 24/7 testing clinic at the Endeavour Sports Reserve. Bill, it opened today. What's the turnout been like?
Well, Pete, this clinic was opened up to shoulder the brunt of testing here in Fairfield, but down the road at the showgrounds, it was simply chaos. If you take a look at these live chopper shots, it still is. Cars have been queuing up to 6 hours waiting to be checked at that clinic, while at the same time it has been virtually empty here at this new site. It appears that cars full of people are starting to get the message, lining up here tonight, Pete. But this has been opened up for frontline and essential workers to get tested throughout the night, so the time no longer is a deterrent to get a test. Pete?
All right, Bill, thank you. Back to school, but not as we know it. Term 3 has finally started, albeit remotely, with 95% of Sydney students learning from the safety of their own homes today. The Education Minister praising parents for taking on schooling, but there's still no answer as to how long they'll be asked to keep it up.
It's been a long fortnight of school holiday lockdown, so for some stir-crazy students, home learning is a welcome distraction.
Welcome back to online learning for the start of Term 3.
Lessons online.
Good morning, everyone.
Classrooms at the kitchen table and parents trying to remember how to juggle life as stand-in tutors.
We have to wake up really early. And one of the things we have to do is prepare for the day, make sure that our work is planned for the day as well before their work is.
For those who can't stay home, no child is being turned away from school.
I'm a manager at a domestic violence organisation, so they're at school. I don't have an option, unfortunately.
But in class, it's supervision only. For about 1,000 lucky Year 10 students, their online lesson was from Olympic medalist Zali Steggall, encouraging teenagers to look to a career supporting athletes and the Games.
Holding up the trophies and the medals, there are countless hours that have gone into that.
The principal at Preston's Public loaning out devices to make sure nobody missed a minute of work.
Stay safe, lovely.
This time around, schools are much better prepared for home learning. Class packs ready for parents to pick up, and that organisation will be key should this lockdown drag on for many weeks. Plenty are desperate to know when school will be back, but none more than those studying for the HSC in lockdown.
I am nervous about trials. I really don't want them to be online because they're my practice for the HSC.
Lara Flaxbar doing her best to stay on track for the real deal in October.
It's mostly just about making a schedule, organising your workload, knowing what work has to be done for when.
Hundreds of schools have already postponed the tests, but it's up to individual principals to make the call.
You will be able to get your HSC this year. We will support you to do that. Obviously, we know parents and teachers and our school staff want that certainty, so I hope to be able to provide that to them very soon.
The longer it goes, the more anxiety grows. Liz Daniels, 9 News.